Hello and welcome to the Winners Find a Way show. I am your host, Trent Clark. I am super excited that you could join us today. I am with my superstar guest, Crystal Waltman. How are you doing, Crystal?
I'm great, Trent. Thanks for having me today.
I'm so excited. Like you and I, we met at the Super Bowl
Yep.
and super just excited to have you on. You have a great story and a great book. And we're going to talk
Thank you.
about all that. For those who are joining us, I'm live from the NFL Combine today in Indianapolis, so I'm in a hotel room with this great background. And so your background looks awesome. Like, look at this. I like look at the abs right there on your swing. Like,
Oh,
were you going deep right there? Like that softball
thank
swing
you.
right there?
Over the fence.
I
Always shoot
love
for the
it.
fence. Yes.
I love it. Swinging for the fence. That's a great photo. Is that actually the cover of the book right there? No, your cover's your photo. Is it on the back? That
It's the
photo?
yeah, it's the back cover.
Oh yeah, there it is. Boom.
Oh, and then a few artists have picked it up.
Yes.
My friend shot this, Tony Mandarich. I don't know if you
Oh
remember him.
yeah. Sparty
But
on Tony Mandrich, the football player?
yes, he's him and
Yes.
I are great friends, and he is also a wonderful photographer. He does a lot of great sports grit,
Yeah. So
photos.
one thing that's a light little thing that most people don't know about you. You hang out with Tony Manders. And people who don't know Tony Manders is probably the biggest, most popular offensive lineman ever in a draft. He was the first one who really became a superstar draft athlete when, back when, and this is funny at the combine, right? Because here I am, and now people put a lot of stock in the offensive line, and back then it was all quarterbacks and receivers and and running backs and he was really that first multi-million dollar athlete that was in the line, and obviously had a story about him in Sports Illustrated while he was in college at Michigan State, which was really unique. So that's got to be a cool relationship. But we are here to talk about Crystal Waltman today, who I'm super excited, and her book "Quitting to Win," which was the 2020 health book of the year. And man, when I think about that book, like quitting to win, it sounds so counterintuitive, right? Like from all of us who are like grit guys and like,
Yeah,
hey,
never quit. Yeah.
yeah, you never quit, never say die, right? It's like, wait, quit to win. Hold on, like I can't do that. So this is going to be great to dive into a little bit. But Crystal, first of all, tell them where they can find you besides crystalwaltman.com.
Yeah, anywhere books are sold, crystalwaltman.com, Amazon, audiobook,
Your so-
download, whatever.
your social.
Barnes and Noble, social. Oh, Crystal Clear Fit on Instagram and LinkedIn, Crystal Waltman.
All right, sweet.
Yeah.
All right, for those joining the show and you've never joined us before, I want you to think about for our listeners, we talk to one percenters about the challenges. So if you are having challenges these days in your business, you are on your road to be elite and you're running up against walls and you're looking to do something greater, I think this is the podcast for you. We talk to a lot of folks who have certainly accomplished a lot, but not without trial, not without challenge along the way. In fact, I would dare say, Crystal, that a lot of my folks that have been on our show, the very trial and charge that took them down a pretty tough road was the very catalyst that got them to the next level, oftentimes. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. But a little background on you, superstar softballer, hence the swing,
Thank you.
which may be better than mine, and that pisses me off. All right, I'll just say that. And then played at Central Arizona national championship. Finished out school at Arizona State. Um, you published this book, but a lot of people probably don't know the fact, like you've been health conscious for years. You are an absolute yoga expert, having actually studied with Bikram himself, which Bikram Hot Yoga is probably one of the world-renowned hot yogas of all the world, despite the man and his issues. The concept is great. My wife and I do Bikram yoga and love it. And I think it's called something else now. But the concept, the modality, the methodology is all the same. And man, I mean, 30 years you've been at that. So like your body fat is 3.5%, or Crystal, where are you at right now? Like,
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. So, I played sports in college. I broke broke myself, and after that's where I first got introduced to pain pills,
Yeah.
was in the college trainer room and keep playing. And, we played like soldier softball. It was like, no matter what we played. And,
Yeah.
that was back then, that was really the culture of do what's best for the team, not what's best for the player in
Yeah.
the long run. And I think times have changed significantly where they do more what's better for the player now, and look at them long term. But after I got out of college, I was in so much pain that, they said, "Oh, your back's broken. It's like that of a lineman. You need surgery." I was so young. I was like, "What? How? I can't get back
Yeah. What are you
surgery."
doing? Yeah.
So let me lose some weight. Let me go to yoga. Let me build a strong core. And that kept me going for a while, but I was drinking to relieve pain. I was taking pain pills to relieve pain. I was going to yoga. So everything looked good on the outside, but physically and emotionally, the substance started to catch up with me as this progressive disease. And
Mm.
in college, I was a very high performer. As long as we won and we celebrated, I wasn't a daily drinker, but a very much like a blackout drinker on the weekends, just when we won, which was all every week, right? Because
Yeah.
out of our 100, we
Great
had like
team.
101 games that season. Like we won 99 of those games.
Yeah.
So I was part of this great dynasty that was going through. And, back during club ball, I mean, even some of the dads drank with their daughters, and it was just really acceptable when we were on the road together, play hard, win, celebrate, and my life became filled with blank spaces.
Mm.
And I don't know if you ever saw that movie, A Girl on a Train, but where she witnessed a murder and she was in a blackout state. And
Mm.
my life became like that, where I didn't really know what I was involved with or what happened that night. And then, people would tell me bits and pieces, and I was losing myself, just
Mm.
completely losing myself. And I had to stop and ask for help.
I mean,
But
that's a lot of courage right there, right? That you finally decide. And it's interesting that, one of the things you brought up, I mean, there's a lot there. But one of the things you brought up is we've adapted better to individual health and wellness and recognizing like, hey, this isn't the best for the person. And I do think, growing up as a kid, it was win at all cost and play through it and, rub some dirt in it, right? Like that was a common phrase I heard many an injury, rub some dirt in it.
Mhm.
And just which was the old adage, you just keep playing through it. And I can remember really that shift. In the 90s, and really it makes perfect sense, right? If you're playing at 80%, it's not long before, especially at the professional level where I was at, like, I mean, 3-4%, you're real average real fast. Like if you drop off, like everyone can beat you all of a sudden. And they smell your pain. Like if they know you can't get to the ball because you got a tweaked oblique or you got something, like they're just
Mm,
gonna start pouring it inside on you. Like
right,
they smell it, man. And so they really you're taken advantage of. And so, you know, from a logical standpoint, I've never understood it. Like, hey, why are we running somebody out at 80% when we have somebody ready to go who's actually going to be able to probably contribute to the team? Because the likelihood of this person at 70% or 60% being better than someone at 95% isn't
mhm,
good at this level. Like everybody's pretty good, right? And so it was always a challenge to me to see that happen. I can recall one athlete, and he threw me off, man. Like it was because I'm the grinder, the gritty guy. You've seen me. I don't look the part of a pro baseball player, right? At 5'6", 175 pounds when I'm playing. And so, I was always like play through it, play hard. I couldn't run the risk of going to the bench and never coming back.
right.
So, man, I remember this guy who was just a fabulous player, and he was like, we're gonna play 162 games. I mean, I'm not going to dive in April for a ball in the cold. I'm going to play it, and we may give up a run. But if I got hurt and I lost 3 months, like, how's that going to help the team? And I was like, wait, what? You're not gonna dive? like I was like, what are you doing? Like, but it was totally logical, right? Like he's like, we're at 162 games. Like, if we gotta sacrifice this one run and I don't run the risk of losing 90 days to breaking an ankle or doing, it was like, wow, that's a different mentality that I didn't grow up with, that I
Right.
didn't really understand. But when he said it, I thought like, wow, there's a lot of logic and understanding to that. So let's come back to this this other component, which is so big, which is, play through it, play through the pain. And so you start numbing, the pain the best you can, which of course is doing major detriment to whatever's hurt, because it's just a veneer, right?
Right.
You're masking it, meanwhile probably causing more damage. Is that fair?
Yes, that is fair to say. And then fast forward, I got I had to get sober. So my
Yeah.
life was in shambles. I had to get sober. My marriage was, on the rocks. My husband was like, "You can't, have the kids, watch the kids anymore. Like you're no good to us unless you take care of this." But at the same time, he wanted to fix me. He didn't want his wife to be an alcoholic. There was this
Yeah.
shame behind the labels. I don't want you to go to those meetings, so I tried everything, going away to all these fancy spas and camps and trying to stop on my own. And I would come back and, I tried everything. Only drink with me, only drink this, only drink, everything that every alcoholic has ever been through. And to just know that I was wired differently, right? So it just has a different effect on me. So then I got sober. So once I got sober, my back I started noticing the pain was still there, right?
Okay.
And then we moved into a new house and I had movers for like a week, but it was like that second week when I'm just putting every little thing away, just fully fatigued, and went up and over with the laundry basket and just exploded my back, ended up on the floor, and woke up. I didn't know how long I had been there. And then they were like, "I can't believe you're walking this long. Like you're structurally, your bones are not holding you up. It's your core." Right. So all the years of yoga and just my muscular system was holding me up, but my skeletal system was just in shambles.
Mm,
And I believe that alcoholism played a part in that, as far as like pulling on my bone marrow. Right.
yeah.
I was like always in a state kind of maybe of malnourishment, right?
Yeah.
Because it would play hard and then, deplete. And back then we didn't know about recovery as much either.
Oh
Like we
yeah.
didn't
No.
know that recovery is just as important as performing. So recovery wasn't part of our training program. It was train, 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 train 5 days a week, play on the weekends. There was no recovery. And when we had off, when we were supposed to be recovering, we were usually drinking. So I was really depleted in my bones. And anyways, went in for surgery, got all fixed up, L3, L4, L5, S1, and 4.5 hours there, closed me up, went in the side, took care of some side hernias, the ones that exploded. And, I didn't know if I was ever going to walk again or run or chase my kid. And I was just like, then you go through that really emotional thing of being hurt. And then I was in the hospital, just like every day I would get up and take a step, take another step, take another step, go to the hallway, go to the door. I was just determined to just get up and walk. I was also went through it with 3 doctors, one who carefully managed my pain medicine, of how not to get addicted because I had been sober. So how do I not, because if they just give you the pills, right? And
Yeah.
they just keep taking the pills, keep taking the pills. And you don't, there's no points for pain. You need to rest, you need to recover. So I wrote about that in my book, about how to go into surgery when you're sober, and how to stay sober through that process. You have to take extra steps because not all doctors know about addiction. They just know about surgery and they want to give you those pills. So I came out of that, and, every day is a gift. And now that, I'm a head coach of a softball team, and just standing on that field and, having those kids come back to me and being able to share all these moments really just is the gift. But it really breaks down to the daily dose, because most athletes, like you said, what is your greatest thing is also your Achilles heel.
Yeah.
So you want to go all in all the time. And So I've developed this thing that I live by, and I've created this little culture around the daily dose. And it stands for dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. So those things that I used to want to get the synthetic high from, like, man cannot make better than what God has already constructed your brain to make those chemicals on their own. If you know how to turn on those chemicals, which I never learned until I was into my 40s, and I started studying the brain about how not to be hacked and stuff, you always reach for that. Like, as growing up, what's on, everything you see on TV, if you don't feel well, take a headache pill. If you start to feel a little uneasy, you eat more, you need sugar, you need caffeine, you need all these things, all these synthetic things, all these pills out there. So what the daily dose is about, it's really about how we're being hacked every day. And what does it mean to be hacked? To be hacked means that something or someone has gained unauthorized access to a system or computer. Normally we think about that as our bank accounts, our Facebook accounts, our digital stuff. Like, oh, I was hacked.
Our identification.
Identification, yes.
Yeah.
But our brain is our supercomputer, and our body is made up of the 7 different systems: the skeletal system, muscular, circulatory, nervous. And how do we manage that every day on a daily basis, one day at a time? And how do we learn to turn those drugs on and get the natural high on our own? So if you start to feel restless, irritable, and discontent, what do? You pick up your phone, you call a friend, you go for a walk, so the daily dose breaks down to these basic middle America stuff, not, that most athletes already know,
Yep.
right? Water, sleep, food, nutrition, and connection. And it is just that basic. And when I start to get, my addicted brain gets, will go all in on something. And I constantly, every day I have to go, all right, take it back to basics, take it back to basics. If something's spinning in my head too long, pick up a phone, run it by somebody, either my coach, my mentor, or my mentee. Always have somebody ahead of you that you want to walk their path, and always be leading somebody. And that really tethers me, in the Holy Spirit, and just in life in general. Because if you have somebody is following you, and you just want to go do that, exactly what that person has done, you just go ask them, how'd you do it, right? And then you stay the path.
Well, I think that so we got to dive into the daily dose, which the daily dose is in the book, right? Like, this is in the book, what you talk about. I mean, so it's one of the things that it's always been challenging, right? Because the simple stuff, it's very simple, right? Like, the design is uncanny. It's unbelievable how the human body is made. And I'm a physiology guy, right? I went to school to study exercise science and physical education. So, it's just uncanny how it all works together. But like you said, it's very simple, but it's not easy. It's not easy to wake up every day and say, "Hey, listen, I'm going to make all the right decisions today." I just did a show last week about this, and I love Patino's book on success as a choice. But the problem is we have like 50,000 choices a day now. It's a lot of choices, right? So let's talk about pivoting that choice matter, and how we're going to do that to quitting to win. Because I think this is kind of where we're diving into, is like, when I talked on the show last week, I talked about these really world beaters I was with last week in Fort Lauderdale and Miami area. And, they didn't run their lives like everybody else runs. Like, they had eliminated things out of their life that 99% of my friends do not eliminate, right? Like, they're like, "Hey, it's Friday night, like, hey." And they're like, "Yeah, I got no time for it." Like, that
Yeah,
is
no time
not
for that. I
gonna.
can
Yeah.
tell you one thing I cut out a long time ago is going to the grocery store before COVID, right? I know I look at my family plan for the week, how many dinners are we going to have, how many breakfasts is, I'm able to order it online and curbside pickup. Like, I don't need to walk down the grocery store and see 1,000 options and get sidetracked. Like, I know what I'm going to wear. It's all about, like, you don't want to waste. I have this one exercise in the book. It's called the diet, how to activate your diet, but it's like, you have all these choices to make, and take it write all these choices down on a sticky note. Where am I going on vacation? What am I going to do Friday night for dinner? Where am I going to take my wife out tonight? Am I going to call this friend? Is my daughter going to, go to this camp? Write all these down. And then you put it in 3 categories: do it, delegate it, dump it. And the reason why you're running slow, because your brain, just like your computer, if you have all those windows open, you cannot focus. So therefore you have to eliminate and activate your decision diet. And decide means to cut off, right?
Yeah.
So people like to say, oh, we got so many options. And yes, we're blessed with options of, how many schools little Johnny can go to, but you don't want to lose your energy, and you don't want to leak energy.
Yeah.
And that's what all these opportunities have. So you have to know about your inputs. Where are you getting your information? What are you listening to? What are you doing this week? Like, map out your whole week. What are your goals? So when you have these 90-minute flow sessions, I'm going to get done in 90 minutes, what some people will take all week to get done.
Yeah. It's a big deal.
So yeah, the daily dose is for those people that can't get into those, like they just don't feel well. Why don't I feel well? Or maybe they can't, like your super achievers, your high performers, they have to know how to fuel throughout the day. I know when I get in a writing flow, so I do 90-minute flows, and I try to do 2 90-minute flows a day, 3 times a week. And that includes my marketing, my outsourcing, my writing blocks, and my personal stuff. So when I get in those sessions, I've already worked out, I've eaten, I have my water, everything's on do not disturb, and you get shit done. You just get it done without distraction. Your self-critic leaves you, time dilates because you're in the flow, and you've lost track of time, and all of a sudden it's 90 minutes and you just knocked out all this stuff. And it's really the only way to be, and by habit stacking. And it's a simple plan for complicated people, basically.
Let's talk a little bit about that, because we always talk about, you call it habit stacking. I often
Yep.
call it batching, right? Like,
Batching.
hey, listen, where are we going to batch, this work that needs to be done? Because I can do that. I can do 3 or 4 of those things in a 90-minute flow state. And I only need to see it once a week. Like, this isn't like, oh, I should take 5 minutes and do that today and every day, and then it'll take 30 minutes because I'll jack around with it. And you're like, wait a minute, you're wasting 30 minutes with that a day? Like, well, not intentionally, because I only really planned for 5. Like, no, I get it. But like, now it's like, oh, so 30 minutes a day, or you could do one 30-minute session one time a week and knock it all out, right?
Yeah.
And so that habit stacking or batching is so important. Man, like, it's so much right there that, in talking about how we can be efficient. And it's funny because, you know some of the most guilty party in the world are the athletes. And, of this poor of the daily dose of really neglecting 2 or 3 of those components, right? Entrepreneurs, they're pretty good at neglecting 2 or 3 as well. But yet they're highly recognized as these high achievers. And
Mhm.
yet they're actually, in part, running up against themselves, limiting their potential, limiting how far they could go. Um, and in the athletic world, your body's all you have, right? Once it's gone, we don't need you anymore, right? Like, what are you going to provide for us anymore? Like, so it's such an important feature to the career. Yet how many people are just regularly abusing it? And it starts early. And I can recall as a kid where I remember my mom telling me, like, I'm so glad you're in sports, because, those athlete kids, because we looked good, they weren't doing all the things that other kids were doing. And I was like, wait a minute, mom. Like, what? Like,
Right. It just
like, yeah, maybe if you don't know, you don't know, but like, they were, some of the worst runners in the school, right? And it was a real challenge. But I think John Q. Public thought, yeah, hey, these kids are in shape, they're healthy, they're doing a good job. They're probably not. They're committed to winning the conference title, so they're not going to be doing these things that these other kids are doing. Not my kid. You know,
Not my kid, yeah.
what do you say to that? Like, because this is, I mean, it's somewhat established pretty early in the game and in the sport world, and it just permeates, especially when there's more and more money and more pressures that come along with it.
Yeah, well, I think, money doesn't matter if you don't have your health,
Yeah.
right? And if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. And to teach these kids how to maintain a strong mental health every day. And what does that mean? Because sometimes if your lack of sleep, like which is number 2, if your serotonin levels are low and you don't have a good sleep hygiene and you don't go through, protect your sleep, then that can start an addiction. It can start depression. It can start overeating, right? So keeping these basic blocks that you need to get through your everyday is, I think, the most important thing to teach our kids. And, when you're not feeling well inside, I don't have a lot of friends, but I have solid friends. I have 5 top girlfriends that I can call that will answer my call and talk me through anything, any time of the day, right? I don't
Yeah.
need a lot of friends. I just need great friends. And I've created that for myself. And if something plays in my head or I can't get it out of my head, I am conditioned to pick up the phone and call them, run it by them, and they talk me right through it. And they go, okay, your problem, not your problem, let it go. 5-minute problem, 5-hour problem, 5-year problem. Like, so we have this little exercise that we can take each other through. And kids need, but I didn't learn that until as an adult, right? So as a kid, you just start burying all this stuff. And I'm really trying to tell my daughter, how to talk about it and let it out and get perspective on it, because they, in the teenage and the, junior high years, are just so tough. They're going through so many changes and they don't really even know who they are, what their style is, they don't know anything. And but to keep that all inside, does create trauma. And, I believe that it's, issues in the tissues. So if you start to get an injury, an ache, a pain, something, I believe it's like something that you got to get out. And then that will release that pain, right? If your pain wasn't caused by an injury, because we have so many people are walking around with soft tissue injuries, soft tissue pain without an injury.
Yeah.
And they're
Yeah.
just, your body is talking to them, and like your body will
Yeah.
try to talk to you, but you got to listen to it. Like, and so to teach the kids how to master their computer, their mind, to teach them how to listen to their body as an athlete, I think that is the most important building blocks that we can give them. And, mental health it's a thing. We talk about it, but you do have to put that good food inside your body, God made food, you need to replenish yourself. Recovery is just as important
Yeah.
as
It's
practice.
Yeah, it is. It's a kinetic chain, right? Like everything is connected, and
Everything.
and it's tough because the moment the alcohol, any drug, prescription work, I mean, there's a cellular issue there that's going on, and of course we don't notice it, right? We're not seeing it. We're not seeing any effect because we don't look at the cellular level, but yet it's being depleted immediately. And so that starts an issue in the kinetic chain. And so, you know, um, I'm always, I always feel like athletes have a level of tolerance for pain. I mean, you're used to sliding out and tearing up your shin or your knee, and yeah, I lost some skin. Like, I'm gonna put a band-aid on. It's gonna be uncomfortable for a few days. Like discomfort is just not uncommon. When you're playing sports.
Physical pain.
Yeah, like it's just and I don't even know if it's pain. I think it's really discomfort. I mean, I would say pain is a little different. The question
Mhm.
always is are you injured or you're hurt? Like are you hurt for a minute? Because like that hurts. And or are you injured? And I think those are two different conversations. And I think the challenge is that the John Q public, they give the same paid meds to a woman who's never had done this, who's 57 years old and gives the same prescription to a 22-year-old full-fledged adult athlete who's been through all this stuff. Like, wait a minute, man, he's not going to need a 40-day supply of pain meds. And like,
Right.
to ask him to take that is literally, to me, a challenge. Like, that's a potential issue already, just given the lifestyle and everything else, because we know the effects of any, especially like a pain medication with any alcohol is a bad mix. I mean, it's all over the bottle. Don't drink with this, and of course, but then we have the institutional issue of, hey, it's after a game and we all go grab a beer and blah blah blah, and then all of a sudden it's almost habitual that the effect comes on. So it's a real dangerous market, and it's scary, and obviously it's proved to be a massive issue in our country, other places as well. um, let's talk a little bit about, um, going. Let's come back to our decisions. I mean, when you're talking about quitting,
Yep.
we're quitting all sorts of things. When
Yep.
you quit to win, what I may need to quit is something different than you need to quit, right? Like,
Right.
and I may need to quit staying up so late. I may need to quit
Right.
pornography. I may need to
Right.
quit, my yarn, sewing club, because I'm spending, I'm up till 3 in the morning doing it. Like, these
That's
things that
right.
we enjoy and love, and some men, it's watching sports. Well, I got to stay up for the 12 o'clock Sports Center and make sure I get every game score in. Like the gambling. I mean, you talk about quitting. Pick your poison, right? I mean, and there are, I mean, if we made a list of all the things to quit, it's a long list.
Yeah, so Trent, you bring up a really good point. I mean, it used to be just the basics, sex, drug, money, shopping,
Yeah.
and the basics like that. But now addiction is anything that keeps you doing that you keep doing despite in spite of consequences. And consequences could be time, health, money, ethics, right? So if
Relationships.
you're doing anything that crosses those lines and you continue to do it, then that can become an addiction. So what they're saying is, if you don't have an addiction yet, it's coming to a website near you. And that is the way that our technology is designed. I mean, the cell phone is a rattlesnake in your hand.
Oh,
It
yeah.
will bite you at some time. It's not if, it's just going to be when,
Yeah.
right? So if you don't time block your usage of that, you will get addicted because maybe you're low on sleep that day. Maybe you didn't eat properly. Maybe you didn't reach out and hug your spouse or your child to get that connection, that oxytocin that our body is supposed to make from that love hormone. So therefore you're getting it on a scroll and these short clip videos, and they're so terrible for the brain, but they make your brain fire up. So you want to go back to that, and then you shut off like what's right here, your family, your friends, and what the live thing. There's two new terms I want to tell you about. One is called phubbing, and it's phone snubbing. And so it's when you're talking to somebody and they're looking down at their phone and you're, at a restaurant. So phubbing is a new term. And digiphrenia. Digiphrenia means to be in two places at once. So you're trying to be your digital self or versus your physical self. So the 20-year-old that's sitting in the corner at Thanksgiving dinner is more worried about their online feed and posting than they are actually engaging with their family that's around them. So they're having digiphrenia, and they like feel pulled, right? Because when you pull them back into the world and you say like, hey, join us over here. We're playing cards or we're playing games. They actually go through like a withdrawal, almost like a hard circuit, like I have to put my phone down. I can't go
Yeah.
plug it in. And the thing, I mean, I am so ultra conscious. I have a digital drawer when everybody walks into the house, the kids, it's drop your phones here. It's your charging drawer. The drawer locks, it's there. If you need to call your parents, you can, but we don't have your phone in your hand
Yeah.
for 3 hours,
Yeah.
and that's the way the phone was designed. And it's not our fault that we're being hacked and our kids are getting hacked. We're getting hacked. And we just, to be a super high achiever or just to be and live in homeostasis and be in your happy place, you just have to counter that every day. Every single day you have to counter it by the
It's
daily dose.
it's so powerful, right? I mean, and it's a scary environment, and we're seeing it. And the funny thing is I think a lot of people are like, hey, it's just the kids. And I'm like, I don't think it's just the kids. Like, I see a lot of people on Facebook that I know. And I'm like, hey, listen, like, the things that you post aren't really anything like your life. like,
Mhm.
like it's like, hey, I'm gonna dress up and play, like, it's like this digiphrenia where you're like, it's almost like a
Mhm.
schizophrenic life. Like, hey, online, I'm this
It's a
person.
different personality, yeah.
Yeah.
But
And at
one thing
home, I'm dealing with all these issues, which is, no one's ever actually seeing because they can't actually be their authentic self online because maybe people would stop watching. I don't know why. But, at the end of the day, it's a scary environment. And I was dealing, my oldest is almost 25. And I can remember 7, 8 years ago when, a couple of him and his buddies at 17 years old are sitting on a couch, and I walk in, and I'm like, "Hey, have you guys thought about food?" And they said nothing. And then they're like texting to each other from one sofa to the other, like, "Hey, you want pizza?" Like, and I'm like, "Wait a minute. Are you guys texting each other?" And they're like, "Well, you asked us what we wanted." And I'm like, "Yeah, like, we could talk about it. Like, we could." I'm like, "Give me your phones right now. Like, I'm not having this, man." And I'm like, you can't even talk to someone. I think the other thing that I've seen is a real scary environment for our kids. And your children are a little younger than mine. You have one that's kind of my child's age, and and it's the fact that there's a boldness in the conversation that people will have online that they would never say in person. Like,
Mhm.
there are things that, we're going back to the junior high dance where all the boys, are holding up walls because, like, oh my gosh, interact with a girl and face the fact that I might have to cross a room, ask beautiful Crystal to dance, and she's going to say no. And my whole being of confidence, everything is shot, right? But behind the phone, it's like, hey, they'll ask all sorts of stuff. And it's like, wait, what? Like, you would never go up to somebody and ask them that in person. And I feel that's extremely unhealthy. I don't know if there's a name for that because I want to come up with a name for that. Like, I don't know if it's digit confidence. I don't know what it is, but it's like, it's
Yeah.
it's scary. It's scary.
Well, my one of my daughter's club teams, her coach, her club, the whole club wide, um, they have a no cell phone policy. So when they're in the weekend tournaments, it's no cell phone, right? So because they talk about, like, remember those great game, like the times that you bond with your team is in between the games.
Yeah.
And when you're on the road together and when you're doing these things and sitting, and having your sandwiches in between the game and talking about and all that stuff. And that, if a coach isn't conscious, that doesn't happen anymore because
No.
everybody will go right back into their phone. So it is a strict and no practice. There's no phone in practice, and there's no phone in our tournaments because
Well,
we have, and when you're back to basics, this is our meeting spot. This is where the parents are. You know what I mean? We just do the old school. And I really like the club for that reason because they're acknowledging, the importance of sports and some of the great things that come from sports and kids learning. And, you all have to kind of be on the same page to get the phones out of their hands.
yeah. Well, one of the things that, when you think about, like, coming back on the I think there's a lot of coaches that can't model that, right?
That's
They
right.
they they almost are the same people. Like, man, I can't wait till we get back to the bus because I've got, I bet
Yeah.
I've got 4 likes to my post this morning, and I got, some people I got to text, and I
That's
think,
the thing about phubbing. If you don't want to phub your kids, teach your kid that word because chances are you're phubbing them.
yeah,
When you're in the kitchen, you're finishing up a thing and they're like, Dad, I want to tell you about my day. And like, okay, hold on. I just like got to finish. And then if you teach them that term phubbing, and you make it a culture in your house, they will hold you to it as well as you holding them to it. So
yeah,
our policy is, if sure, cell phone time is fine, but if we're in the room, our phones are down. If you're
yeah,
gonna, so you need to treat your phone just like you would a traditional phone. You need to excuse yourself and go make that text, make that phone call. Okay, I'll be right back. Because it's not fair. And your brain, when you're on your phone, it's like you're on pot. Okay. Your response, you're like, huh? What?
Yeah.
So
It's
they've
cloudy.
tested that. They put the phone in your hand, and they've done it with driving as well, that your response is worse than you're on pot. So why would you wouldn't smoke pot and be with your family? So why would you
Yeah.
be on your phone and be with your family?
Wow. That's powerful right there, right? Like what's happening. So let's kind of come back to, there's a lot of challenge. I mean, you look at the alcohol challenge for you and things that were coming into your life, these addictive things were really in your life. I mean, by 20, right? I mean, it's really starting.
And our
And
kids even younger now with the
oh
phones.
yeah,
So
yeah.
we're
But
teaching them about addiction early.
yeah. Now you go in and fight this thing for, I mean, this isn't an overnight like, oh, I figured this all out, like, and
No.
I mean, you go 20 plus years in this battle. Is that fair?
Yes, it is. My life was filled with a lot of blank spaces. I struggled for a long time. But my life from the outside. So physically, I'm this yoga instructor. I'm winning, fitness competitions. Physically, I look great. Emotionally, I was dying.
Mm,
And it took my friend's suicide was really what put me over the edge. And same thing, she was full scholarship to ASU and committed suicide. And I never really processed that. But yeah, I went 20 years with an addiction to alcohol,
mm,
and then pills, and then pain pills, and then more pills, and back and forth. And it's nuts. Most diseases, let's just say all diseases are progressive. So you don't just wake up one day with diabetes,
yeah,
right? This is a slow progressive disease. Alcoholism is not a problem until it's a problem.
yeah.
And I had a lot of people around me, enablers. I had a lot of help with my kid, but it wasn't until I saw my daughter, saw my friend lose, they either end up in jail, dead, or you lose your civil rights, and where you can't drive your kid anymore.
Yep,
Like you can't drive your kid to school,
yep.
right? Or if you went away to rehab, then maybe you went to jail, then maybe you came back. I'm watching housewives that look just like me. This happened to, and they call it the Yets. And, Arizona used to be very tolerant, and then it went to a no tolerant state. And then Uber just extended that. So what? You can Uber, you can drive, but and drinking laws and license started to open up everywhere. So now they're at the country club, so you can drink while your kid's at a swim lesson. Now you can drink while you're at the grocery store. Now you can drink, while you're watching a dance lesson, and then you can just Uber home. So if you're not breaking any laws, are you breaking the laws? So this slowly, I created this life that caged me and slowly snuck up on me until it was just a problem, and then, husband's traveling all the time, and you're raising kids, and you deserve it. And this mommy wine culture that is just out there, and it is good for nobody,
Mm. I mean,
you're
I think one of the things that you just hit on this is like it's all progressive, and I feel like
progressive.
it's one of the things that we've really missed. Um, it's one of the things that we've really missed in our culture because it's funny that there's a certain person that would go, "Hey, listen, I'm a progressive. Yeah, yeah, you are." Like, and we are enabling this behavior at an age that makes no logical sense because it's like we forgot that it is a progressive downfall. These little decisions, one little decisions, again, back to that kinetic. It's going to affect
Mhm.
this chain. It's going to affect this chain. It's going to affect this chain, and then and then it keeps happening, and it has on a larger scale, and you know no one's gonna ever argue with like, no, I'll always just need 3 drinks a day, and that's all I'll ever need. Like,
That's
no, you
right.
won't. Then you'll need 4. Then you'll need 5. Then like it's always been progressive, and in both a good and bad way, right? Like in your health and fitness, if you just did the same workout, you don't get the same result after 2 months. You've got to mix it up. You've got to progress that. It has to be progressive, and you have to challenge that body, right? Because physiologically it won't adapt if it has nothing to adapt to. And so we're in this, and I just feel like, we're letting, I had a guy on my show named um, Jim Ayers, and Jim was a former president of Amway, and he's like, man, the book I hate is Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. Like, hey man, it's all small stuff, and you better be watching all of it. Like, because these little things, like, you just don't do and just decide, like, oh, that's not important. Like, one day it's gonna be. One day
Right.
it's gonna be a problem. One day it's gonna be this big problem. And as a parent, I always saw this with kids. Like, if we had like this little thing and we didn't nip it, we were like, oh my gosh, we're just too tired to deal with it. Then my little mouse size problem came back as a laptop size problem. And then I
Mhm.
didn't want to deal with that either. And so it came back as my desk size problem, 2 months later. And then it's back 2 months later as a room size problem. And now the next one's a house size problem. And I'm like going, I don't know if I can bail you out of jail. like, what are we talking about? Because I've ignored all these
Yeah.
little steps that the signs are there. And when you say progressive, I was always reminded of, like, To Catch a Predator, right? When they do these things on the show, and it's like, hey, the pastor didn't just show up today and get online and offer a six-pack to a 12-year-old. Like, there's a bunch of little things that happen along the way, and somebody ignored all of it, right? And that person particularly, for sure, but it's progressing.
Yeah, it is, and it's like what they say, like, for the pilot, if you're leaving LAX and you're 1 degree off heading for JFK, you're gonna end up in the ocean, so
Yeah.
having a
You land in
very
DC,
clear
actually. Yeah, yeah, you land in
you to
DC.
have a
Yeah.
very clear ethical, financial, spiritual plan of where you're going, it makes those decisions easy. Like you were saying, the high achievers, like it's easy to go through invitations for me and be like, no, 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 I don't go anywhere without purpose, unless I have purpose to be there. And I'm fully sure that I should be there. Do I go? It's not just about, because I got stuff to do.
Yeah.
And, automating your breakfast, automating habit stacking those good things. And just because when you're tired, you'll fall back to your habit. So if you have good habits, like every time I wash my car, I get gas. I'm never getting gas in a random gas place because my life, it just doesn't, I don't have to. It's always full. And if I leave town or I leave my bubble, I always know I have enough gas. For example, and people running out of gas, like when they go, I got to get gas or electric car, whatever. I'm always like, that's such amateur hour. Like, you rookie, just stop, get off the field, just stop playing. Don't just
Well,
show up.
it's one of the things that many people don't understand about to be elite, right? Like, they're
Yes.
thinking like it's the small things. Um, I want to hear um what you would recommend. I mean, you got people hurting out there, and I want to end with two things. One is the quote, or something that you read, something you go back to that levels you right away to get you back to the daily dose, to get you back. I mean, like, hey, I'm a little bit off the line. I don't want to land in DC. Like, hey, we
Mhm.
need to get that 1 degree back and get it back on course for New York,
Yeah.
right? So, is there something that you really is like a go-to for you?
Every day. It's if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything.
And that's it. You just say when
That's
you
it.
read it, you got to review everything on your schedule immediately and go, why am I doing this? Like, don't need this in
Well,
my life. No.
I'm so systematic already that I don't even have those decisions in my world anymore, because I used to have, after I stopped having alcohol noise, which took me a while to settle down, then I had food noise.
Mm.
But now, if you like, it's just easy, keep it simple. God made foods. Like if you go to a restaurant, like, oh, what should I have? What should I have? No, I have the same thing every time. You know what I mean? If you just stick to your principles and your basics, um, work out as soon as you drop the kids. So if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. You know,
Yeah, I love
that
that.
pretty much applies to everything.
Yeah, and I love that. I've seen a lot of people struggle with holding a standard.
Yeah.
And listen, and I have a lot of admiration for people, even where I don't agree with their standard. I'm like okay with the fact, like, hey, I really wouldn't live my life to that standard,
Right.
and I'm
But
okay.
that's
Like, but I admire that they're staying on it. Like,
I I do too.
yeah. And so,
Yes. And the
I
last
yeah, go ahead. Well, how about one thing for our guests? I have a quote that I thought about as I was thinking about interviewing you today, but go ahead.
Yeah, so the quote is, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And then back to the daily dose. And the daily dose is water, sleep, food, nutrition, movement, and connection. And those turn on all your natural chemicals. And once you master that, you can master anything. So first master yourself, and then you can master anything in life and become a high achiever. The sky's the limit.
Let's go down that list again. Water, sleep, food,
Water, sleep, food, connection, and movement.
connection, and movement.
Connection
Those
with
are
the higher power and yourself and others. So there's 3 types of connection. Like, have you put your feet in the grass today? Did you reach out to somebody, and do you
I'm going to
believe
run down that and do that right after the show, by the way. I am
you
running
go
down to put
outside?
my feet in the grass. It's like 70 something here. I don't know what to do with myself in Indianapolis because we've been in an ice storm for 3 days. And okay, self, higher power, and what was the other connection?
Others,
Others.
others. So if you
Okay.
just if sometimes if you have something running around in your head and you just call up somebody else and you say, "How are you?"
Yeah.
Like, it pops you out of your head right away. Like,
Yeah.
get out of yourself, because
Yeah.
you got to break the loop.
Yeah, I know I've struggled, when I've struggled with the winter doldrums, like one of the things, like we have a big snow and I literally go across the street and shovel my neighbor's driveway because I just
Mhm.
feel like I got to do something for somebody. Like I'm so stuck in my own mired trash, right? Like it's not good, and I got to connect to somebody else. And I just, when you're connecting to someone else and serving someone else, it's always brought me back that connection and leveled me. Um, as I was thinking, Crystal, as I think about, we've known for a week that we were going to do this. So, I really thought of this quote: each day you choose whether to work towards a goal or not. When
Mhm.
you decide to do it every day, then growth is inevitable.
Mm. Yes.
And that's by Oli Senditas. And
It's
man, I
so
just thought,
good.
like, it's simple, right? Like, hey, listen, here's my goal. It's simple. This is what I'm going for. Right. Like, but it's easy to get distracted. So for those folks out there, like, hey, Crystal, first of all, thanks for coming aboard. So happy to have you on the show. And for folks that are listening, I mean, decide out there. You got to decide what you're going to quit. Get your daily dose. Get it
That's
going. Like, just with the stuff of technology alone, I'm changing things already in my life. Like, it's awesome. So thank you, Crystal, so much for being with us. Thrilled we could do this together, and looking forward to seeing you next time.
Okay, thanks, Trent.